Hey, when do we vote in the primary this year?
In Maryland, early voting starts on June 11 and ends on June 18. And Election Day is June 23rd.
Wow, that's coming up fast.
Yeah, it is.
Who are you picking for Congress?
I'm so glad you asked. Welcome to Dishing with Dan, the podcast for Dan Schwartz for Congress. Each program in Dishing with Dan is an opportunity to chat about what he will do for Maryland's 1st Congressional District, why his policies are better for you than Andy Harris's. Dan's campaign is about connecting with folks throughout the district to make sure that his platform represents us, which is why he can win this important election. The primaries in Maryland are coming up quickly. Make sure you're registered to vote, find out where your polling place is, and mark your calendars for when you will cast your ballot. Because this year, we can unseat Andy Harris with Dan Schwartz as our candidate. For District 1 listeners, we want to hear from you. You can leave a voicemail directly from your podcast app or email your questions in an audio file to info@schwartzforcongress.com. We'd love to include your questions and comments in the podcast. Now let's start Dishing with Dan. Welcome back to the podcast, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Pretty good.
Good.
I wanted to dedicate today's program to a huge question many people are thinking about, regardless of their political party. Our nation is celebrating 250 years since our Declaration of Independence in 1776. And voters this year are thinking about what it means to be American. What is our heritage, who we are today, and what our future as a nation should be. You're running for Congress in a moment where we're watching institutions and traditions being bulldozed, figuratively and literally. Our listener question today hits at the heart of the anxiety that so many Americans are grappling with as we prepare to elect leaders this year to represent us. At the same time, we're trying to figure out how to build a future for our nation that we can be proud of. It's a lot for one candidate to take on in one discussion, but I know that voters in District 1 are eager to hear what you have to say. So let's take a listen to Bill.
Hey, Dan, this is a rather loaded question, but after Trump has completely trashed the United States and the world around us, what do you think is going to be your first step in restoring America back to the greatness that it is?
Well, thanks, Bill. That is certainly a loaded question, but there's certainly a lot that we have to do. We have to hit the ground running when we flip the House. The first step is to flip the House. Hopefully, we're going to flip the Senate too, and I think that increasingly it's looking like we might be able to do that. Then we got a good president in the office in 2028. But before that, starting in 2027, when the new Democratic-controlled House takes office, we better go to work immediately to address the issues that the American people care about most. And let me say, this is a great country that we live in, with wonderful people all across this country and a wonderful political system too, when it works, when it's not controlled by the same party across all three of the major branches of our government. And right now it's clearly not working. Our government is captive to the Trump administration and the narrow kind of twisted form of the GOP that they've become. In order to reclaim what makes this country great, I think we have to kind of put the engine back in the car that is our government, that they've just completely taken out while we're driving. And, a car with no engine is just not going to run. So that means we have to restore the right people into the right positions of power because, my old boss at the Conference of State Bank Supervisors, where I was for 15 years working for state banking regulators across the country, he would tell me people is power. And that means that the people who are in the important positions who get to make the decisions, they're the ones that dictate what's going to happen. So this administration has fired the people that keep us safe, that run our regulatory agencies, that police our regulatory agencies, like our inspectors generals across the regulatory agencies. We need to put them back into power, first and foremost, to make sure that our taxpayer dollars are not going into the pocket of politicians and corrupt corporations, and that our country is not just for sale to the highest bidder, which it just simply cannot be. And we need to make sure that corporations are not governing themselves, meaning we can't put the heads of these corporations, like the heads of crypto companies or AI companies or chemical companies, in charge of the agencies that are responsible for regulating them. I firmly believe that that is a recipe for disaster. And regulation's a kind of a bad word in my district, but it's about achieving the right balance between corporations and regular people and communities, and making sure we're not over-regulating and putting industries out of business, but making sure that we have more than just no regulation, because we know people get hurt, the environment gets hurt when these chemical companies are in charge of regulating themselves, or when the crypto industry is in charge of regulating themselves, and it's just all about how much money they can make for each other, and not about our local communities and our people that live in them. So we got to put the engine back in the car that is our government. We have to focus on addressing these economic policies that are just creating this whiplash effect in our communities and leaving regular working people behind at the expense of making more money for billionaires. And we got to hold these guys accountable for the corruption, for the grift, for the scamming. That means restoring the FBI's Office of Public Corruption, putting the Civil Rights Division back into place at the Justice Department, and restoring the staff of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Those are just a few of our agencies within our government that actually work on behalf of regular people, and right now have just been captured by special interests. There's so many things to do, but that's a few of the areas in which we're going to start.
Listening to you speak makes me think about when I used to work in Russia about 30 years ago. And at that time, the United States was the beacon of hope for people. People thought, oh, that's the one place on the planet where the rule of law actually means something. And as the Soviet Union was disintegrating, there was a saying that people at all levels of life, all demographics would say that a law is like a doorway in a field in the Soviet Union. You can walk through it, but why? And I feel like when listening to you speak, just understanding that the rules are for everyone and that the regulatory agencies are staffed again by servants that have dedicated their life to making sure that everyone follows the same rules will do so much in giving Americans faith in their own rule of law again.
Yeah. These people that say worked at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to put money back into the pockets of regular Americans when they're scammed, or when Wells Fargo opened fake accounts for them. This agency literally put billions of dollars back into the pockets of working people when they were taken advantage of. That, I think, if you were to poll the American public on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, it polls very highly, because they're literally doing that work for the people. The only people that don't like what they were doing are the massive corporations that view us all as dollar signs, or the president and his team, because they know that these are the guys that were holding them accountable for their corrupt behavior. To see a lot of my best friends who worked over there, who would wake up in the morning, go to work, trying to help the American people, these guys didn't make a lot of money. This wasn't some path to riches or glory for them. They're toiling away in a basement at the CFPB, answering questions for exam teams that are out on site at MoneyGram or at Binance or Cash App. I'm not afraid to call out Cash App. This was a company that doesn't even know what a regulation is. They weren't even pursuing the bare minimum legally required processes when older people were scammed on their platforms. We went after them. We got an $80 million settlement out of them the day before the president's inauguration. And we required them to put a monitor in place to make sure that they're following the rules going forward. And now all the work that we did like that is reversed. These companies that don't care about following the rules are in charge of your money, and your money is no longer safe. Just like our water is no longer safe, our food is no longer safe, our skies are no longer safe, our nuclear safety system, your bank accounts. These guys have just made us less safe in every single way. We need to restore being the party of public safety, the party for safe communities. The big, beautiful bill, it didn't just take away money from our schools and our kids. It took away money from our local police departments at the expense of building up this federal law enforcement apparatus that causes chaos in our communities. We got to flip the incentives here to support our local law enforcement and make sure that our local communities are getting the resources that they need instead of Saudi Arabia getting the resources that they need, or whoever the president thinks is deserving of his attention and whoever put $1 million in his pocket for a pardon getting whatever they need. That's bullshit. That's a scam. And we're going to hold these scammers accountable.
You've given us a lot to think about, and it's clear that we have a lot to do. But the first step, as you said, is take back Congress.
Yes, we have to flip the House. Our primary is coming up really soon. I think when we first recorded our podcast, we were still a couple hundred days out from the primary. Now we're less than 60 days out. We have a real opportunity to get rid of some of these leaders who have made it clear they only care about special interests. They only care about their relationship with the president. They do not care about their voters. And we're going to beat these guys all across the country by really taking it to Andy Harris, who's the chair of the Freedom Caucus, who's made it his habit to divide up his campaign funds for his Freedom Caucus cronies all over the country. We're going to force him to spend that money here, and we're going to mess up these races all over the country. We're going to flip the House, and we're going to go to work immediately on day one in January 2027 to clean up this mess.
Excellent. And thank you, Bill, for that wonderful question that took up all of our time for this program, but I think that it was a really good discussion. If you have a question or comment that you'd like us to include, you can leave a voicemail straight from your podcast app. I think it's under fan mail, and you can send an audio file by email to info@schwartzforcongress.com. Please subscribe and share Dishing with Dan with your friends and family. This will bring more people into the conversation and help Dan connect with more and more people throughout the district. This is Wanda Boker, producer and host, signing off for Dishing with Dan. Until next time.
Thanks, Wanda. Looking forward to your questions.